Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Good. I have a newfound appreciation for you starting every show the same way, because now that I'm hosting a daily podcast for Buckeye Scoop, it's like I don't want to have to think about how I start every show. I just want to sort of be able to go on autopilot and get going, and then once you roll into the conversation, it's fine. But if I start thinking about it, it's like you get a little mental and you start stumbling. And yeah, I have a newfound appreciation for just that very simple, easy opening to the beginning of the show. How's it going with you?
Pretty good. And, you know, when I first invented that opening, I was the first person to ever say, hey, how's it going? You know, people were telling me, the Sloopcast guys, maybe even you were saying, you know, come up with something catchy and, you know, and like Sloopcast guys have, you know, we got barbecue back here. And, you know, it just didn't work for me. And it's the same way with when I'm writing, like sometimes a lot of times the intros are the hardest part to get the story started and get things flowing. And so with this, I find it just flows right out of the opening theme song, and it's all just part of one thing. And then Tom, then you start the show.
Then I have to come up with something creative to say every time.
Exactly. I put it on you. That's why I am the genius and you are the working slug. No offense.
Oh, none taken.
So, players are coming back in the next few days, and before they get here, we are hoping to maybe talk with somebody from the team or some sort of availability. That did not happen yet this week. So what we have decided with this show is I put out a feeler for some questions, and somebody suggested for us to talk about some concerns on offense. So I thought, yeah, that'd be a good show. Is to this show we will discuss the biggest concerns position by position on offense, and then next week I assume we'll do defense because that's how content goes. So Tom, we'll start with the quarterback position, and I think I know where you're gonna go, so I'll let you go there, and if I have to go somewhere else after that, I will.
Yeah, I wrote down two things because I thought, well, there's one that's really obvious, and there's, I guess, a second one that you could say, but it's not really a concern, so I'll take the obvious one. What if Justin Fields gets hurt?
Oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah. What if Justin Fields gets hurt?
Yeah, well, then you've got Gunnar Hoak, who has not played a whole lot. He was a third string all of last year and played very, very sparingly and didn't get a spring ball to, you know, kind of be the backup and get more reps and get at least backup reps. Because, you know, if you're the third string guy, you're not getting that many reps during practice. And that also is an issue with C.J. Stroud and Jack Miller, the two true freshmen who came in the spring, and you sort of were anticipating that they would go through the full spring and be able to be in a position to at least challenge for the backup spot by the time fall camp opened. And now they have 3 college practices under their belt going into fall camp, which is not great, does not really put you in a great place to challenge for the backup job. And so there's just all of the options behind Fields have far less experience than they would have during a normal year, which is not great. And just the drop off from a third-year college player, second-year starter who is a Heisman finalist last year to guys who are either true freshmen with no spring or functionally no spring practice and a guy who did not get to play a whole heck of a lot last year. That's a pretty big drop off. I think that has to be the biggest concern there.
Yeah, and my other concerns all revolve around Justin Fields not playing. You know, you mentioned Gunnar Hoak, who was 6 for 6 last year, so let's give him some credit there. He did okay when he was in there, but the drop off from arguably the greatest quarterback in Ohio State history by the time he is, you know, maybe halfway through this coming season to anybody is going to be dramatic. And then the freshman missing the spring and being the possibility that one of them, CJ Stroud or Jack Miller, will be called upon. It all goes back to Justin Fields being healthy. And that might be the biggest concern on the entire team because of what's behind them, the inexperience there. There is talent, but the drop off is immense. I don't know if there's any bigger drop off anywhere else on the team. And that's not necessarily a statement about Gunnar Hoak or CJ Stroud or Jack Miller. That's a statement about how good Justin Fields is, how great Justin Fields is, and how good this team can be if he's healthy. So yeah, that's not only at quarterback, that might be the biggest concern on the entire team. Do you have anything else on quarterbacks, Tom, before we go to running backs?
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing that I had written down, and this is really not a concern for me because he was an internal hire and has been working with these guys a lot, but it is Corey Dennis's first year working as a quarterbacks coach, like the main quarterbacks coach. He's been working with Ryan Day for several years. He's been on staff. He knows all these guys. To me, that's really not much of a concern, but if you wanted to have a second concern at quarterback, sure, you could say that, but I think that's probably a little bit of a reach.
I think it's a lot of a reach, Tom. Why don't you trust Ryan Day? He's already shown he makes good hires. He knows what he's doing. And for you to crap on him because of a hire like this of a young, inexperienced quarterbacks coach who has been around, Tom, I think it's beneath you.
I apologize. I should have prefaced it with the fact that I didn't really think it was a big concern. But, that's fine. That's on me. Live and learn.
Thank you for that. So let's go to running backs. I'll go here. And it's kind of like the quarterback situation. It revolves around injuries because everybody here in this group has injury concerns except for Steel Chambers. And when I say injury concerns, I mean they have had injuries in the last year. And when you're talking about Trey Sermon coming over from Oklahoma with his knee injury history, you've got Marcus Crowley injured his knee last year at the same time. You've got Master Teague with the Achilles there. So those three, your top three running backs, all have a little bit of question mark to them. And then I won't take the second concern of Steel Chambers not getting that opportunity this spring to show what he has. But I thought we saw Marcus Crowley kind of starting to come into his own, starting to maybe, I don't know if he was earning more carries because that was almost impossible with J.K. Dobbins there, but he was looking comfortable. And then he had his season cut short. We know Master Teague was strong early, kind of faded a little bit late, and maybe that was because they were playing better defenses. That usually goes hand in hand. But the injury history at running back and how healthy are these guys going to be immediately? Now, Marcus Crowley and Sermon should be fine. So I don't know if the concern is there. It's when does Master Teague come back, and when he does come back, is he 100%? Is he 85%? So for me, Tom, just the injuries over the last 12 months or so at running back is my biggest concern.
And that's a good one. That's the first thing I had written down for running backs as well. The other thing that I think you could look at as a potential concern is all of they have a very deep room full of veteran guys now. How do they balance that? Because
that was my second.
Yeah, 2 years ago you saw the Mike Weber, J.K. Dobbins. You've got two kind of number one running backs, and finding a way to strike a balance there, and who's going to go in on any given drive, and can guys get in a rhythm and all of that, and if you're trying to juggle three running backs, yes, that does help keep guys fresh. They're getting hit less. They're fresher and later in the games. So there's a lot of positive to that, but there's also just some personnel management stuff there. And, the 2 years ago, I don't know that the rotation was the biggest issue with the running game just kind of falling on its butt. That was, there were some offensive line issues. I think that definitely played into that as well, but it certainly didn't help. And that was something that J.K. Dobbins talked about, feeling like he had to hit a home run every time. And because he felt like he was trying to hit a home run every time, his yards per carry dropped because he wasn't just getting those extra 2 yards. He was trying to get an extra 60, and when you're trying to get an extra 60, sometimes you don't get those extra 2 yards per carry. And that adds up. That makes a big difference over the course of the season. So outside of the fact that you've got three guys coming back from injuries, if everyone is healthy, there's one concern if guys are not completely healthy this fall. There's another concern if everyone's healthy, and then you have to figure out okay, how do we balance the carries? How do we, keep the offense in a rhythm keep guys fresh, but, and do all of that at the same time. And that can be difficult to do.
Mm-hmm. And we heard J.K. Dobbins talk about those difficulties. And I think one of the reasons it was difficult for him is because he didn't experience it before. Like 2017, he was the guy because Mike Weber was hurt. And so then you come into 2018 where he has, 1,400 yards under his belt, and now he's got to start sharing again. It probably would have been better if he had come off the bench as a freshman and was able to be the Master Teague of last year, where you complement the starter. Now, the good thing about Trey Sermon is he has done that. He split carries every year. When he was a freshman, he had 121 carries. Rodney Anderson led the team with 188. His sophomore year, he had 164 carries, which led the team. But you also had Kennedy Brooks with 119 carries, Kyler Murray with 140 carries. And then, of course, last year he dropped off with 54 carries and was fourth on the team. So he does have this experience of sharing the workload, as does Master Teague. So maybe that helps. But you still have guys that want to play. And, we mentioned Marcus Crowley and Steel Chambers. And, poor Mayan Williams is probably going to have to wait a little bit for all of this to settle. But at least these guys have experience sharing carries and know what it's like to just stand on the sideline and wait your turn and know that your turn is coming. And when it does, you don't necessarily have to hit a home run. And also, like you said, Tom, the offensive line is going to be better equipped to handle whatever running game this is. So these guys won't feel like they have to make it all up in one hit because you just follow the blocks and maybe it'll come anyway. So I think the fact that these guys have experience, they have a good offensive line, there's going to be enough opportunities, but they have experience not getting what they want. And so I think that helps.
Yep. That's probably true. And, there are, with both of these things, there are positives and negatives to both of them. And, there are, out of the 130 FBS teams, there are probably about 127 that have far bigger concerns at running back than Ohio State does this year. So that's also worth probably keeping in mind.
We've got too many running backs. We don't know what to do with them. Now, we're talking like Ohio State 1992 there or something like that. And they ran the ball a bunch and they still couldn't get everybody involved. Receiver, Tom, I'll let you go first.
That's good because I only have one thing for this.
And I know what it is, so go ahead.
I have that the young guys who were potentially going to be getting into the rotation and providing some depth didn't get the benefit of that spring practice. So Jackson Smith and Jigba and Julian Fleming and G. Scott and Mookie Cooper, all of those guys, I think there was an expectation that at least one or two of them would be able to have that kind of Chris Olave freshman year where they're not necessarily getting in day one, but might be getting in, work their way into the rotation through partway through the season, become difference makers towards the end of the year. Without having them go through spring ball, that's going to hurt that a little bit. They were all in for spring. That it sure seemed like it was setting up that they might be able to be difference makers kind of right away, and that's definitely not going to be the case now. I don't think for at least most of them. It's possible. It's not impossible for that to happen, but that for sure. I mean, in the same way that set every team in the country back, that's going to be probably something that sets the Ohio State wide receiver room back a little bit.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't help. Not just a freshman. You think about a guy like Jameson Williams, who we got to see him a little bit in practice this spring, and he had some moments. And this is a guy that I think I expect to have some really big moments, and he didn't get a chance to show what he could do to be able to improve over the course of 15 practices and getting those reps. For me, though, the biggest concern is the X receiver spot. Who is it? At Z, you assume it's going to be, and with not even thinking about the freshmen yet who might work their way in, but at Z, I'm thinking Chris Olave and Jameson Williams. Those two guys might be two of the 5 or 6 most explosive guys in the Big Ten, and I might be underselling that, but then there's guys at Purdue who are good. There's guys at Minnesota who are good. So it's not a bad crop of receivers, and Jameson Williams and Chris Olave especially, I assume will be pretty close to all Big Ten this year, and then head off to the NFL and be the first round receiver for the Buckeyes since Anthony Gonzalez in 2007, the most recent anyway. So Z I think is fine. H, I couldn't be more confident in Garrett Wilson, and you throw in Jackson Smith and Jigba, who, this show has high expectations of. CJ Saunders, Demario McCall, Mookie Cooper. I think there's enough there at H to put up some big numbers. But X is where I have the concern. And, Brian Hartline, Kevin Wilson have both said that Jalen Harris was a leader in the offseason, which you like to see. This is his senior season now, and he's got a handful of catches. And when I say a handful, I mean like 6 or 7, something like that. So he's going to have to prove himself on the field. It seems like he's proven himself off the field. He's a concern, or the position is a concern. Is G. Scott in there? Is Julian Fleming in there, 2 freshmen? Where is Cam Babb? Is he an X? Is he a Z? Do they know? Is he good to go? That's a guy I'm looking forward to watching. But the X position, where's Elijah Gardner? For me, like, the other spots are so laden with potential. And then the question mark for me is X. And it could be fine. Jalen Harris was a highly rated guy out of Cleveland. We know G. Scott was a top 50 or 60 prospect, but he's a freshman. Julian Fleming, the number 1 receiver in the class, the number 1 player in the class, according to ESPN, loaded with potential, 6'2" or so, 6'3"-ish, 205, 210, 15 pounds, benches 225 nearly 20 times, can run into 4.4s, basically your ideal receiver. But again, he's a freshman. Now we saw Garrett Wilson do pretty well, rotating with Benjamin Victor at X as a freshman. So I'm not saying it can't be done, especially with a couple of guys like G. Scott and Julian Fleming. But until you see it, Tom, I got to see it first.
Yeah, and I mean, you named a number of the freshmen who were potentially going to be at least rotation guys at X at some point this year, which kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. And, Jalen Harris, I think there's optimism surrounding Jalen Harris this year, but yeah, until you see it, you haven't seen it, and you want to see it before you really believe in it. But the other thing that's maybe a little bit optimistic there is we saw last year they were willing to move Austin Mack from X to Z. So if they really don't feel like they have the depth they need at X, they can move someone else around. I mean, maybe you move Garrett Wilson back over to X from H. That's a possibility. It's these are not the most hard and fast rules in the most hard and fast positions. Like, no, once you're an H, you're only an H, and you can't move back to X. So there are at least some options there, which probably mitigate a little bit of the concern. But yeah, I mean, of the 3 receiver spots, there's not a question that X is the one where, kind of between the freshman who didn't get to have a spring and Jalen Harris, who has been kind of buried on the depth chart and is now being relied upon to potentially be the starter. There's probably more question marks there than probably any other spot on the offense at that one particular position.
And it might be counterintuitive to think this way, but because we've heard similar things about Jalen Harris in the past, and because it didn't come to fruition, you almost have more faith in the freshmen because they haven't failed to live up to something yet. But then also to put this on Jalen Harris like it's his fault or something, he's been behind both Benjamin Victor and Austin Mack for his entire career. And then, last year Mack moves to Z. Garrett Wilson is over at X with Benjamin Victor. And so now I can't fault Jalen Harris for not being able to get on the field much when he's got Benjamin Victor and Garrett Wilson in front of him. And Garrett Wilson, I think, is going to be crazy good this year. So I can't hold Harris super accountable for not getting on the field when he's had the guys in front of him that he's had. So it's pretty amazing to me at this point that he has stuck it out, and not just stuck it out and gone along and just followed along and been some wallflower. Like, he has taken players under his wing. He's taken these freshmen under his wing and has become a leader. And I think that speaks to the culture, but also give him credit. That speaks to him and his ability and desire to want to be a significant portion of this team. And so he's a guy I think Buckeye fans should be rooting for. They may not even know him yet. Hopefully they'll get a chance to. And Jim Tressel would always talk about you want your players to have their very best years as a senior. And we've seen it time and time again where a guy just comes out of not necessarily nowhere, but finally gets that opportunity as a senior and becomes something more than he's ever been. And maybe that's Jalen Harris this year. I think a lot of people are rooting for him, and I think Buckeye fans should as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's someone who, I'm not looking at his bio right now, I think he's 6'5", if I remember correctly. Like, he's someone who has the potential to be a real weapon, and especially in the red zone. Just, go up and beat, if you've got 5-6 inches on a corner, go up and just beat him, go up and get it. And he just, I mean, like you mentioned, it's not like he's been stuck behind terrible players. He's been having trouble beating out guys who were some of the best receivers in the country last year. So that definitely is not a real big dark mark against him, but he has an opportunity to really be, to step forward and actually take that starting job and have a pretty good, have put together a nice senior season and put kind of an exclamation point on his career. Cause right now he just hasn't had that opportunity. So yeah, based on the talk around him, it sounds like they are pretty optimistic about him, but I mean, like we said, I'm going to be very interested to see it in practice and then potentially see it in games.
Moving on to tight end, we know that Ohio State is TEU. So when you talk about concerns, it's almost like you're concerned about losing everybody to the first round of the NFL draft, and you're concerned about maybe tendonitis in the hands from catching 80 footballs in a season. And you're just concerned about the overall health, and you don't want to work these guys too hard, and they get worked so hard with all of the catching of the passes, Tom, all these poor tight ends targeted so often. But for me, my biggest concern is, I don't know that they're going to play as much two tight end sets this year, and we'll see. But a large reason they played so often last year was because there wasn't another H that they trusted outside of KJ Hill. So that allowed them to go with more Jeremy Rucker and Luke Farrell, and Jake Hausman and Rashad Berry were out there a whole bunch as well. And Berry is gone, but Hausman returns, and you got another freshman in there as well. So there's going to be enough tight ends to play two tight end sets, because we know Luke Farrell and Jeremy Rucker might be, I don't know, they may be the two best tight ends in the Big Ten, or two of the five best, and they both could start at Ohio State and could start basically anywhere else. So how do you keep these guys healthy? I think that's how do you keep them happy? That's my concern. They played a bunch last year. How do you keep Ohio State tight ends happy? I don't know that's ever been a concern of anybody before, because they get thrown to, as I was lying earlier, they don't get thrown to all that often. But for me, I really like what Ohio State has at H, and I think those guys should play a lot. But the potential of these two tight ends, who are both very good, and Luke Farrell and Jeremy Rucker, down the seam, and things that he can do, I just wonder how much playing time they're going to lose because of the receivers. And I don't know that that's an adequate concern, but it is one that I have, and I guess it's a good problem to have. Is, well, we've got too many good receivers, we've got too many good tight ends. Oh darn!
Again, these are problems that at least 127, 128 other FBS teams would absolutely kill to have as problems. But yeah, that was exactly what I had, is, balancing the talented and deep wide receiver unit with the, temptation to use 2 tight end formations and wanting to use 2 tight end formations and sort of juggling that just in terms of personnel and scheme. Outside of that, I guess the biggest concern would come after the season. When does Jeremy Rucker turn pro after this year? Because he has, he certainly has the measurables that could make him a pretty high draft pick, even if he doesn't put up, a 500-yard, 15 touchdown kind of season this year. He has the measurables that could make him a pretty attractive draft target for the NFL next year. If he goes, you already are losing Houseman and Farrell after this year. If he goes, then you just have Cade Stover, who just moved over to tight end in the spring and got like a practice in, or 3 practices in. And then you've got Joe Royer, who's a true freshman this year, and then Sam Hart is going to be a true freshman in 2021. And, they're going to be trying to bring in a second tight end in the 2021 class. But, that's a concern that you could lose 3 guys out of a 5-player room after this season. But yeah, that's really, I'm kind of cheating because the question is more about the season, and the season, you're right. It's just, how do they balance the 2 tight ends versus the, 3 wide receivers plus the talented running back room? Like, too much skill talent. That's their problem.
Those poor SOBs. You're talking about the second tight end in 2021. That was looking to be Hudson Wolf, may still be Hudson Wolf, but if you want to check out Alex Gleitman's ADEC at BuckeyeScoop.com, he has some info about that recruiting situation with Hudson Wolf right now, who is one of the top tight ends in the 2021 class. Tom, let's move to the offensive line, and I will let you go first. I assume, again, that we're going to have the same concern, but after you say your concern, I will then try to repeat that exact same concern, but with different words.
Well, I have 2 different things written down here. I guess I'll go with the first one, which is the injury concern, which is, Thayer Munford had issues kind of towards the end of the 2018 season and missed some time in the 2019 season. You really don't want to lose your left tackle. You really, really don't want to lose your left tackle. So, can Thayer Munford stay healthy and stay on the field all year this year? We haven't had any indication that he's had injury issues now, but, he's been away. You don't know exactly what the conditioning setup he's had during this break. Can he stay healthy? Can he stay on the field? That to me is probably the biggest concern, because you're only replacing 2 starters up front, and one of the starters is being replaced by Harry Miller, which is not a concern to me at all. So the other empty starting spot is the other possible concern to me. But I think the drop off from Thayer Munford to whoever is going to end up being the second string left tackle, that has to be probably the biggest concern to me on the line.
All right, then I will go ahead and move over to right tackle then, which is a all hands on deck competition between Paris Johnson, Nicholas Petit-Frere, DeJuan Jones, and I think we all expect that to be Nicholas Petit-Frere. And so when I think about that, I kind of go back to the argument with Jalen Harris. It's like we've heard so much, but we haven't seen much. And we got to see some of Nicholas Petit-Frere last year, and it wasn't great at times. But when we talked to Greg Stodrawa this year, the spring, I don't know, a month ago or so at this point, he said that NPF is moving right along, and he's right on time right now. And he's got the good weight. He's as strong as he's ever been, which is where they've been working to get him. So they're happy with the size, the strength, his understanding. So the confidence there is high that he is going to be as good as advertised, which was a 5-star prospect, the number 1 offensive tackle in the 2018 class, a top 10 player overall in the class. And so that entire body of what he is projected to be, it sounds like he's getting there according to his coach. Tom, do coaches ever talk up a player? I'm not sure.
I think I may have seen it once or twice in the past. So you just kind of have to know the individual coach, because there are certain coaches that will gas up everyone. and there's other coaches where it's like, oh, that really means something. So there are some contextual clues there that you need. Stud, I think, has done a pretty good job of not being the everyone is a future All-American kind of person. So I put a little more stock in stuff that he says than some other coaches, in Ohio State's history. So that's encouraging. And this is his third year now. He got kind of thrown into the fire last year at Northwestern, and like you said, it wasn't great, but it was experience, and they got plenty of playing time just in blowouts last year. So you're starting to build up those reps a little bit, and he's another guy who it sure would have been nice to have a spring full of first team reps for him to just sort of build up that experience a little more. But everyone in the country is dealing with issues right now that caused by the same exact thing. Everyone missed spring ball for the most part, and once again, I'm going to say, having the 5-star top 10 overall player in the class be a new starter on the offensive line, he's new starting. So, that's kind of a concern, but also kind of not.
The funny thing to me in all of this is that nobody has any concerns about Harry Miller. And you talk about players getting gassed up or whatever. And we've said it time and time again, I don't think I've ever heard anybody complimented the way Harry Miller has been by everybody, coaches, head coach, players, teammates, competitors. It's almost like, yeah, he's a sure thing. And now he's still competing for that left guard spot with Matt Jones and Gavin Cupp and everyone else who is available. But there are like no doubts with this guy, no concerns. You've got concerns about left tackle. There may be people more concerned about Wyatt Davis, the All-American, than Harry Miller at this point. And so it's funny to me, but also I have no concerns about him, and I know I'm not alone. And that's not a bad thing. Another former 5-star guy. Yeah, I guess you're going to have to plug him in there, and he'll be the center of the future next year when Josh Meyers leaves for the NFL. And Josh Meyers is another guy that when Stud talks, he's been talking up Josh Meyers since the 2018 when we were out at the Rose Bowl. And he was saying he's good enough to start, but we just didn't want to move Michael Jordan at that point. And so we saw it last year. We're going to see it again this year. Not a bad group of offensive linemen and depth everywhere. And when the concerns are, hopefully the left tackle holds up in terms of the injuries. I think that's probably, I would have to agree with you. That's, even though it may not end up being a concern at all, it may still be more of a concern right now than what they've got at going at my concern of right tackle, just because it is time for Nicholas Petit-Frere. And if it's not going to be him, then they also like DeJuan Jones. And if it's not going to be him, then there's the other number one offensive tackle in the 2020 class to give it a go.
Right, yeah. Which of the top 10 overall players in the nation, number one offensive tackles in their class, which one of them will win the starting right tackle job? Or will it be the guy who is superhuman sized and nicknamed Big Greasy and an absolute delight in every way, and who was one of the most positive surprises on the 2019 team? Which of those three guys will there be? And I mean, we also even haven't mentioned Max Ray. Max Ray is someone who was another kind of top 150 kind of prospect coming out of high school, and he's fighting to just get into the two deep right now because they have so many other good tackles. So yeah, we're doing a show based on biggest concerns, but it turns out this is an offense loaded with incredibly talented players and a coaching staff without much turnover, and which has produced two of the most explosive offenses in school history the last couple of years. So as far as concerns go on offense, I guess this is what you guys want us to do a show on, so here you go.
Yeah, I'm thinking 8-4 this year with this terrible, pitiful offense that we're so concerned about. That's too bad.
At least,
what kind of bowl game is that the Alamo Bowl? I don't know where that puts us. Where are we driving, Tom?
Oh man, let's see. I have to be honest. I have not had to go very far down the list of Big Ten bowls very recently.
Where was Michigan last year?
Yeah, well, Michigan was in the Citrus Bowl, so that's probably a little too good for 8-4. But yeah, I don't know. Jacksonville seems nice. There's a lot of wonderful options. Can't wait.
All right. I think that's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. Make sure to check out BuckeyeScoop.com, and I will probably wait to upload this until we're actually online later today on Thursday. So we are all looking forward to it. Check it out if you would like, and if you would please. Also, there'll be some links all around. There's some videos. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. That will help us. That's something easy you can do that can help us. Subscribe to the Buckeye Scoop YouTube channel. Check out everything there. Sign up if you would like. We're all looking forward to it. Tom, are you still looking forward to it? Or is it old news to you now?
I am. I have definitely reached the hurry up. Come on, let's go. Yeah, I am super excited to see the finished product, and again, this is, I think we said this the last show. This is it's going to be a little bit of a work in progress as they continue to refine and add new features and all that kind of stuff. But having already having access to the back end of the site already, I have gone through all of the articles and go, oh, that's interesting, I want to read that. Oh, that's interesting, I want to read that. There's a ton of great recruiting coverage back there already. There's some really interesting insight from some very, very talented writers. And if the YouTube channel is worth checking out, we have all of our different podcasts on there. That's a good way to sample all the different shows on the network. Please check out the Morning Scoop, which is our daily morning show, Monday to Friday. We'll be doing that. The Thursday episode is up already. We'll have a new one up Friday with Mick Walker, who's a very talented young recruiting writer who's been crisscrossing the state all week, talking to both football and basketball recruits, guys who Ohio State has already got committed, guys who Ohio State is currently recruiting. So we recorded that one last night. Very, very good talk. Really enjoyed talking to Mick, and some good insight on a whole bunch of guys that, some guys who we haven't even talked about yet on our show. So I think you guys will enjoy that. So check out the YouTube channel. And then check out BuckeyeScoop.com as well.
And I look forward to being a guest on your Morning Scoop in the coming months.
I don't know. I'm not sure if you and I would work together on a podcast real well. So I'll see. We'll see if it works out.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Don't worry about it. I'll edit this out. It's okay. It's fine. Thank you all for listening. Sincerely mean that. Go check out BuckeyeScoop.com and just enjoy it. And we will talk to you guys later. Thanks.
We could steal a car and leave.